this is a procedure which everyone need to understand. So though it is new in the armamentarium of interbody fusion, so there is growing interest in doing this, and definitely it is going to be the game changer in future. So just in next 10 minutes we'll go through how it is done and what are the indications. So basically transcambian approach was conceptualized and done first by this Professor Syed Usman from Frederick, USA. So where first he did a cadaver study and then he did cases, and I was fortunate to visit his center and see cases live by him and learn. So basically the concept is it's between O-leaf and a T-leaf. So where in O-leaf the cage goes more horizontal and T-leaf we go through transfacetal. Here we are going through the transcambian approach where the cage enters the interbody space through this cambian triangle. So that's why there are a lot of misnomers, a lot of debate about what is the best name to be given, but the best name is the transcambian approach because the cage goes through the cambian triangle. So there are so many literature now to convince us enough that this procedure is very good procedure and safe procedure. So Dr. Syed Usman published a few cases initially. Then Michael Wang from USA, he published 10 cases with 1 year follow-up. Then later they published their 1 year follow-up with 100 cases under regional anesthesia. So they had excellent result. Fusion rates were on par with any other techniques available, all the MIS techniques. And there are a lot of literature coming from Japan about this technique where they are regularly doing this, and they have modified their own techniques, especially by Professor Nakamura from Japan. What are the advantages? Why we need to know or learn about this is because we are going through the foramen. We can do excellent foramen work. We can do foraminoplasty if required. We can deal the recurrent disc. Same time we can do interlaminar decompression if necessary when there is a stenosis. And the biggest advantage is that there is done under epidural or local anesthesia sometimes. So GA can be avoided in patients who are very morbid, and definitely there is very, very less analgesia post-op, and early recovery is the key. So what we do is, I do under epidural, and off late even we do under general anesthesia because we use neuromonitoring, and regular endoscopic system which we use for transforaminal approach will do. There are no special instruments here except for some few curettes which we have custom made curettes. So most of the time it's done under epidural analgesia, which gives advantage. The advantage is that you can keep talking to the patient, and when you are in doubt, we can ask the patient to move his legs and confirm that you are not injuring something. And it is done under neuromonitoring. Even we do epidural also we do under neuromonitoring, which has helped us preventing some injuries. So the planning again, it's same like posterolateral approach, the transforaminal approach for discectomy. Only change is that here we need to cage to be more ventral, that's more anterior, so we enter more medially. So it depends upon normally 13 to 15 centimeters for the endoscopic discectomy. Here we take around 8 to 10 centimeter roughly for a fusion because we need to place cage more anteriorly. And this is entry point just as patient is positioned for any surgical open surgery or MIS surgeries with a little bit flat back. So marking is done, same epilateral again in the lateral marking. We are taking here 10 centimeter. Key is the placement of the needle. Needle, when you place a needle, it should be in AP around midline, and in lateral it should be in the anterior third. For the discectomy, we teach that the needle should be in the posterior third. Here, because we want case go more anteriorly, the needle should be more anterior. That's lateral, it should be more anterior. That's anterior third. Once the needle is placed, then it's everything goes on the needle. So it's a dilator goes there, then the sheath goes in there. Once sheath goes in there, you put a scope and start preparing the end plates, remove the disc, preparing the end plates. The biggest advantage is you see what you are doing. That's the biggest advantage, where you prepare the end plates, visualize. These are the curettes, articulating curettes, and you can see nicely you can prepare the end plates superiorly and inferiorly, and you know what you are curating. So the injuring the subchondral bone, or sometimes patient is very osteoporotic, we use curettes or we use shavers. These can injure the end plates and the loss of subchondral bone leading to subsidence. This can be prevented here because you are preparing end plates in a visualized manner, and the adequacy is also seen, where to stop and whether it is adequate or not. So at the end point, you can see here on either side, you have prepared the end plates well, removed the end plates well, gone anteriorly till the anterior cortex. So prepared the end plates bilaterally, and there is a lot of questions regarding whether when you are using such a saline irrigation, will the bone fuse? Yes, definitely it fuse. We have our own follow-ups. So then once it is done, then you pack the anteriorly with a graft, either with the allograft, or I use Kronos, the tricalcium phosphate, calcium crystals mixed with bone marrow, pack anteriorly. Usually I pack a 5 cc anteriorly, then insert the cage on the K-wire. So once a graft is packed, put a K-wire into the cannula, remove the cannula, and appropriate size cage. Again, what size cage to be used? Once you place a 8 mm cannula inside, you get a rough idea that whether we need to use a 10 mm, 11 mm or 12 mm cage accordingly. So once it is done, then percutaneous screws are placed. Either percutaneous screws can be placed first if you are dealing with a grade 2 listhesis, or disc space is collapsed and you want to distract, you can put screws on the opposite side and distract. It can be done. These are the cages devised by Mahesha and me, where this is a second generation cages which has a tapered tip, so it acts like a dilator. When it is going in, already the system is dilated because of the cannula which was lying there for half an hour. On the K-wire, it goes as a dilator. So just a gentle stretch on the tissues. This does not lacerate anything there because it is a tapered dilator like a cage devised, and Jeon has manufactured it. We are using it for last almost 4.5 years now. This is an expandable cage, but again, expandable cage, there is a challenge where it cannot go on a K-wire. So we need to use a sleeve. So sometimes when the foramen is too crowded, putting this cage without a K-wire becomes a little bit challenge. So that's why we use only a simple cage on the K-wire, which has worked beautifully for us. And indications for all, as we do with the MIST lift, so grade 2 listhesis easily can be reduced with all other indications as we do for a single level T lift. So this is just a video. So it's a 35-year female. I'll just go through this video. If I have time, we'll complete this video. So this lady has a grade 1 listhesis mobile. So with once a patient under epidural PON, K-wires are placed, the wires are placed already. So then we marked AP lateral, so this AP marking and the lateral marking. So you just enter on the lateral marking because you have to be parallel to the disc. So here the needle is going there. Again, if you want, you are in a good center, you can even have a monitoring of the needle with the neuro monitoring can be done, where exactly you are not anywhere near the neural structures. So once a dilator, it's the same like transforaminal technique, only the placement of the guide wire is more anterior, that's it. So once a dilator is placed, one care should be taken here that a dilator should be parallel to the end plates. You should not bang obliquely so that the end plates get injured. Once the tip of dilator goes inside, then you are there. So it goes there, it dilates. So once it is gone there, once dilator, you can push dilator as anteriorly as possible. So once the dilator is there, you can place the sheath. I'll just speed it. So sheath is there. Once the sheath is inside, then you can start doing a disc removal. End plate is curetaged with articulating curettes. You can see the end plate is nicely prepared now on one side. So I am preparing on the other side. Once this disc material is removed. You can use radio frequency to ablate the tissue, shrink the tissue. Once bilateral end plates are prepared nicely, so you can see the end plates are prepared nicely. You can go as anterior as possible, confirm on C-arm. And this is, you can say I withdrew the cannula a little bit to show that's the epidural fat, and 9 o'clock is the exiting route and 12 o'clock is the traversing route. So we are working there in between two without any damage. So then I go inside again, then pack the graft. Now I've taken the bone marrow from the iliac crest. So mix it with the crystals, pack it. This is done. So then K-wire is placed. So this was I was talking about. K-wire is placed. These serrations go to the end plates. You can pack the graft even here. So then it goes on the K-wire. So you are asking a neuromonitoring guy to, once you are there at the foramen, just you can place the cage there and remove the K-wire. Here there is no need to keep the K-wire. Remove the K-wire, then you start. Then here you can adjust whether you want to go more ventral or more oblique. So with experience you can understand how the cage placement to be. So then you can just, this is a final placement of the cage. Then after that again I place the cannula to just confirm whether we have injured anything. Just that's the cage, and at the 9 o'clock you can see the fat and the exiting route. So it is safe technique, and just a couple of minutes I'll go through some examples. Stenosis case where with a grade 1 listhesis I did interlaminar decompression first, then put a transforaminal interbody cage. So the second case was very interesting. So it was twice microdiscectomy was done. She had a foraminal stenosis with osteophyte, foraminal osteophyte. The space is collapsed. So you can did just a transforaminal decompression with the drilling of that osteophyte and placement of the cage. You can see good foraminal height has been achieved, and this is pre-op and post-op. You can see that's the advantage of because we are going transforaminally, you can decompress. This is previous scar midline, twice microdiscectomy has been done. So it's a simple percutaneous entries, and so this is one more grade 1 listhesis with a 2-level disease, 3, 4 and 4, 5 bad facet disease. Here again bilateral 2-level end plate preparation is done. Just again a small C-arm videos. So case goes in there. You can use a serial dilator to assess the size of the cage. One cage goes in, then the second cage again goes, the end plate is prepared, the second cage goes inside, and again implants. So it's as we do for any other MIS technique. So there are situations where we had a bad foramen, bad central canal and global disease. So again for this also do a interlaminar decompression, go transforaminally. This is a interlaminar decompression, and this is the final result. So you can do good interlaminar decompression, put the cage transforaminally. So you can do 360 decompression with a. So this is a great. This is one case, a traumatic spondylolisthesis. Young guy, we had a fall of a metal pipe on his back, bilateral pars fracture with spondylolisthesis. So there was a patient was done as an emergency in the night itself with neuromonitoring under epidural. So you can see a mark on his back. So it was done, and this was a final result. Post-op, very nice reduction with a good graft placement, and this is the end point. So this we published recently in JMIST, got published. So definitely this is a very good technique done correctly. This is all need to follow the basic principles of transforaminal endoscopy. Challenges are end plate fracture not done correctly, they might do an end plate injury. Suboptimal cage positioning, we don't understand the 3D orientation, then you might have a problem with and post-op dysesthesia. Yes, when your foramen is too narrow, so don't try to push the cage inside. Do foraminoplasty first, and then you can insert the cage. So the post-op dysesthesias can be reduced. So in our 4.5 years experience, till now we have done around 72 cases. So 35 patients, 1 year follow-up is there. So we had 2 patients of bad dysesthesias which improved over a period of time. One patient had a L4 weakness when we did this L4-5. This problem was we put a 13 cage in that patient. Then she had a weakness for around say 2 months. Then she recovered. And one patient, L5S1 young girl, it was my 7th or 8th case. So I was skeptical to put a bigger case. So I chose a small case there in L5S1. Then case retruded on 3rd day. Then I went again, just gave local anesthesia, went there and retrieved the cage back and put a bigger size case. So that was one bad experience because of the smaller case. Limitations again, a learning curve as with any other endoscopy or a new technique. Operating time, yes, initially there's operating time is the key. As a spine surgeon, busy spine surgeon, want to get out of the theater as fast as possible. This is not possible in this technique, at least in the initial period. Radiation exposure, yes, if your initial days you will have to take multiple shots because you are more worried that what is the exact position of the K-wire cage and all. So radiation exposure is one challenge here. But take home, definitely the biggest advantage is the visualized end plate preparation, which we don't see in any other technique. So only here we can see the end plate prepare, and you can do a good foraminal decompression and interlaminar central and lateral recess decompression if there is lot of stenosis. And recovery is very fast. So you can do it as a daycare procedure and send the patient on the same day. Thank you.